Hey everyone, this is Cindy Allen, Editor-in-Chief at Interior Design. And today is a special day because all day we are with our great friends at Benjamin Moore, your favorite paint, color, and coatings brand. All right, so designers, I want to ask you a question. Now, I know you love them, but do you know the history of the company? Who is Benjamin Moore anyway? And how did they become a leader in the residential and commercial markets? Well, I am very excited that we're going to get all these answers as we kick it off with a very special conversation with Dan Kawkins, the chairman and CEO. Yes, this is a Benjamin Moore Takeover Day. Hooray! Hi, Dan. How are you?
I'm great, Cindy. Thanks for having us. We're very excited about being with you today.
Okay, first things first. Dan, I understand that you've been with the company for quite a long time, more than a decade, and that you've worked with some of the family descendants. It's an amazing story. So why don't you first tell us a little bit about your history, and then we'll dig into the company history.
Yeah, well, thank you. I've been with the company now for 34 years. I started in Chicago right out of school, first job I had after college. And I've worked all over the United States in different roles and have spent the last 15 years here in our corporate office in New Jersey and have great experiences all across the continent working with Benjamin Moore, learning from a lot of great people that came before me. And it's been a great experience.
Yeah, I mean, growing with a company can't get better than that. But okay, so I need everyone to hear this. How old is the company?
Well, the company was founded in 1883, so we're closing in on our 140th anniversary. So
Wow.
it's we've had a great run.
Yeah, amazing. I don't think any of us hear that very often, like 138 years old, right?
Right, right. No,
Yeah.
it's been a company that started here in the New York area in Brooklyn off of Atlantic Avenue in 1883. Two brothers, Benjamin and Robert Moore, started the business $2,000, and now you look 138 years later, and we're a world-known brand for a lot of reasons. But obviously, our founders did a great job setting it up.
Yeah, so I love this. Two brothers started with $2,000 in their pockets,
Yeah,
right in our own backyard, which, Atlantic Avenue, I used to live down
yeah,
there. It's kind of
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
So this is not only, in a way, the history of the company, but almost the history of paint in a way, right? So can you give us a little bit of, kind of the Cliff Notes version of what was going on back then? How did they make paint? What was paint?
Yeah, it's interesting because paint, as we know it today, is very different than it was in
Yeah.
1883. So Benjamin Moore's first product was a product called calcimine finish, which was and Moresco. It was a product which came in boxes, which was basically a powder where painters on the job site would mix with different oils to actually get a liquid form that they could apply to a wall. So it's very different technology than what we have today. And really, our founder Benjamin Moore started out with basically hardware stores. There really weren't paint and decorating stores at the time, and sold either directly to painting contractors or to hardware retailers, basically in the New York City area. So that's really what was going on at the time, and that's how we got our start.
Yeah, you were telling me that, the painter would grind the pigments, right?
Yeah, and they would use different oils mixed up with different pigments to come up with the different colors. I think initially, early on, the range of colors was 8 or 9 colors. It was a very limited palette, so, much different than today. And obviously, that was what technology allowed. But still, even at that time, he was able to provide a product that was differentiated in the marketplace and really gave Benjamin Moore a leg up early on and really started us down the path we're on today still.
Yeah, you were telling me the earthen colors, right? Like the
Yeah.
umbers and siennas.
Burnt
Those were very,
siennas, those types of things. Very much or very organic colors.
yeah. I read something. There were these slogans: paint, varnishes, and Morescos. So
Right.
was that the Morescos? Was that for the ceiling? What? Tell me, explain that.
Yeah, Moresco was originally established. It was a box, it was powder, it was mixed with oils, and it started out as a very matte finish. Still is today, different technology, but it is a sealing finish. And what it did is with the old plasters and stuff, it hid the imperfections extremely well that you find once a ceiling gets hit with light. This was able to deaden those imperfections in your ceiling, and early on it was a real leading technology. So we still have a product in our line today called Moresco. It's kind of a nod to our founder and who we are as a company. We have different products today that outperform even Moresco, but Moresco's still a highly used product.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I love that. I also, there's all this beautiful archival photography. And I noticed, and I wonder what they call it back then, but I noticed early on, there was a lot of marketing, because you'd see these signs and they would say, quality forever more, or it's so easy, or color as you like it. I kind of love that. Even back then, they were good marketers.
Yeah, they really, I think it's one of the things, obviously our product performance, our color palette, things that we stand out for today. But early on, the company was able to resonate with consumers and contractors in a number of different ways. And many of the messages early on were very, very powerful. And when you look at them today, to your point, they do resonate. There's no doubt about it. They were very well done.
Yeah. There was this image, Dan, you have to tell me about this. There was this image of like an annual dinner. It said 1916 annual dinner. All men.
Yes.
Boy, have things changed.
Yeah, well, I mean, think about 1916. That was before the women's suffrage movement had even passed. So it was a whole different era, and we're a very different company today, I'm happy to say. But if you look at that picture, everybody's in tuxedos, and there's bunting, and it's a very grand room, and all these things that, are so different today. But it's an impressive photo, just that we still have it and how things were done then. But like I said, we're happy we've moved forward from then. But nonetheless, it was a point in time for sure.
Yeah. So tell us when paint started changing. Like when did latex come into play?
Yeah, latex came out of technology that was used during World War II. So really, when you talk about the war effort and the things that America had to do to make a difference in the war, some of the technology that came out of that was latex. And then chemists got a hold of it and started applying it to other uses. And so really Benjamin Moore started selling latexes very early on, certainly right after the war, early 50s to mid 50s, the earliest latexes started to come into play. Those latexes, quite frankly, did not perform like the oil paints that were prevalent at the time. But as things evolved, now latex is very much the prevalent finishes in the marketplace for lots of reasons, performance being one, but also environmentally, they're much better for all of us. So it was really the 1950s when that movement started.
And when did Ben, tell us what happened with the family? When did he pass away, and when did the next group of the family?
Yeah, so Benjamin Moore passed away in 1917. And then L.P. Moore picked up the ball from there and had a very long run, well into the 1950s. And then after that point in time, the Belcher family, which was the family that ended up selling the company to Berkshire Hathaway, managed the business for those years. So from probably the 50s through 2000, the Belcher family, which was, descendants of Benjamin Moore, had ownership of the business, ran the business. And fortunately for us that were at Benjamin Moore prior to the sale of Berkshire Hathaway, they chose Berkshire Hathaway as a partner. Berkshire Hathaway chose Benjamin Moore. And our business continues today very much like it always has. We run the business day to day like we own it. We treat it like it's our family's only asset and that we're wanted to run for the next 50 years. And so being the leader of the organization, it's really a privilege to be able to have that opportunity to run the business in that fashion. And family were great people to work for. Like I said, the first 13 years I was with Benjamin Moore, they were still leading the organization. And they were great people and did a great job to build this brand, over 100 plus years that they had ownership of it. And us who are here today still working for the organization benefit from the work they did and all the people that came before us.
First of all, I love that you knew them, which is amazing. And also that there was this deep DNA and deep history of the company and the brand and what they stood for is still carried on. So you were telling me this amazing story about the logo and the meaning from all the way back in the 1800s. what those values stood for and how they're carried on today.
Yeah, so our triangle, the 3 points of the triangle, actually stand for intelligence, industry, and integrity. And so it's really kind of at the base of who we are as a company. Whether you're talking about the early 1900s or today in the 21st century, we still adhere to those principles as an organization. And they may play differently today in the different ways of doing business, but at our core, at our foundation, those principles still matter today at Benjamin Moore. We wear a lapel pin, it signifies those 3 points. And it's important to who we are. It ties us all together. It's like we're part of something bigger than ourselves. We're part of this great thing that's Benjamin Moore, and that's a key piece of it.
Yeah, I love that. And you were telling me there was like issues with maybe changing the logo or changing the color, and how knowing the family, knowing how much that meant, right?
Right. Yeah, no, obviously as things transition, you start moving forward, you look to change, you look to reinvent, you look to iterate. And there was a period back where they wanted to change the pin to red to reflect our outward-facing retail logo. And it was very, very interesting how that set up such a debate internally about what is that about? Why are we doing that? This isn't what the pin was. This isn't what it stood for. And it was very interesting to see that debate play out over time. And fortunately, we stayed with the blue pin, and it's who we are, and it's exciting, that it stayed that way. To me anyway.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we've, I love the history. I love all the imagery. It like really takes us back. And now we like kind of move forward in today. Look, we've been navigating the pandemic. Everybody has. How's Benjamin Moore been doing?
Well, we're very fortunate. I'm very, very proud of our organization. While obviously, like most people, last March, a year ago, many of us were wondering, what does this mean for all of us? And, we had to go to remote work. We had to change the way we do lots of our things. Our customers were faced with new processes. But the resiliency of our company, I couldn't be more proud of. We really did pull together. Obviously, we were deemed an essential business, which meant we could stay operating. Our men and women in our factories and distribution centers who don't have the opportunity to work from home have, showed up, masked up, made paint, shipped paint, and done a tremendous job through this entire pandemic. And, we had a number of tailwinds last year that benefited Benjamin Moore, and last year was our best year in our 138-year history. So, I couldn't be more proud of the job our people did across North America and the globe now, as well as all of our retailers. I mean, many of them had to go to delivery, curbside pickup, modified hours, different protocols at retail to ensure they kept their customers safe. It really is a tremendous statement to the commitment people showed to Benjamin Moore, who are part of this brand, all the stakeholders we have, whether it's customers or employees. It was just a tremendous year, and we're still working our way through it. It's challenging. Day to day, it's different. We're working on all kinds of things all the time to work our way through it, but we did a good job. We really did.
You did a great job.
Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah. Let's talk, Dan, let's talk about, because you're consumer facing, and then obviously to the A&D market. The A&D market is very, very important to you. Can you explain when you understood how powerful the designer and architects were for your business, and kind of take us through that?
Yeah, so it was mid-'60s when we really started putting people on the street that were focused on the A&D community. It started here in New York. It wasn't a North American movement. We said, let's see what this means. And we were, at that time, still located on Canal Street in Manhattan. Our corporate offices were there. And we had a couple of people who said, you know what, this is an important group of professionals that we need to dedicate time and effort with. We could help them, they can help us, we could work together, and we could grow Benjamin Moore working with this group. And so in the late 60s, and then it really started to take momentum into the early 70s, we started establishing a workforce, our architectural and designer reps, who are 100% focused on the A&D community. And that's what their job is. Their resources, their sole focus and efforts are on those partners of ours who are out there specifying Benjamin Moore products and colors, across the globe. And so it really started then, and some of that had to do with just, again, technology changes, choices, consumerism. There were a lot of different factors playing into that. But we were lucky we had people that had the foresight then to know how important this community would be for Benjamin Moore, and it's still very much so today.
Yeah, for sure. And we've also talked about because they're at the leading edge of what's happening in design, that also helps push product innovation for Benjamin Moore.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that community, the A&D community, is very much an important stakeholder at Benjamin Moore. Their feedback, their input affects decisions made here. It just does. Our relationships with that community does make a difference here at Benjamin Moore. And obviously for us, we benefit from the community supporting Benjamin Moore. You know, we talked about influencers, right? And they're very much a group of people who influence choice. And we benefit from our relationships with that community. And that's why we want to be so supportive. We want to be helpful. We provide support, tools, information, anything we can do. It's a very important two-way relationship. You know, input from them drives decisions here, and we recognize the benefit that has for Benjamin Moore across other designers, consumers, homeowners, you name it. They have an integral part in benefiting the growth of our brand and the positioning of our brand and what people think about Benjamin Moore.
Yeah, you were telling me that like there was a big difference between like the consumers and the designers. Well, you tell it because it's a good story.
Yeah, well, I think that if I'm referring to the right conversation we had, because we had a lot of great conversations, but you know, when you look at consumers today, you know, our color system is one of the things that we're known for, and the design professionals really do appreciate the palette that we have. But you're seeing more and more today, consumers find color to be overwhelming, and they're looking for curated palettes and smaller palettes and less choice. And we believe a lot of that has to do with this whole direct-to-consumer movement, whether it's in paint or eyeglasses or whatever the case may be. People like less choice from a standpoint of simplifying their lives. They still want options. I'm not suggesting they don't, and we certainly have plenty for people. But helping them down that path of choice is critically important today, because it's not like a designer who understands color and what it means and how it affects rooms. They don't have that level of understanding, and so they're looking for help from a professional. And whether the professional is a design professional or a paint company that can help just select some small palettes people to choose from, they're looking for that.
Yeah, there are 40, did you say 40 salespeople?
Yes, we have 40 in both Canada and the United States that are exclusively dedicated to the architectural and design community.
Yeah, and where's all the manufacturing happening?
Well, we have 5 manufacturing plants today in the United States, one outside of Boston, one in upstate New York. Our oldest facility is in Newark, New Jersey. We have one in Pell City, Alabama. I was just recently there. And we have one in Dallas. So, that's where our plants are. And with the growth we're having, we're expanding our upstate New York. We're doubling the size of it. And we're also looking at possibly a West Coast manufacturing facility in the near term. So we've got a lot going on with growth, and we support it through those manufacturing facilities. And then we have 19 distribution centers throughout Canada and the United States. So that's how we get product to customers, through those facilities.
You know, something that came out of the pandemic is that everyone is talking about wellness and sustainability and really taking it to heart. And I know in terms of sustainability, you guys are too. So tell us a little bit more about that.
Yeah, we have a sustainability team and initiative here at Benjamin Moore where we're doing what we can to be as solid a corporate citizen. We want to make sure that our footprint in the environment is small as it can be with the industry that we're in. We work across the organization with our employees, customers, end users. We participate in all kinds of initiatives for recycling of paint. So there's lots of things going on. It's an important part of who we are at Benjamin Moore, and it always has been. It goes back to early on changing the makeup of our chemical compounds well before it was mandated by the government. The family believed in that, and we were early leaders in that movement.
Yeah, I think about when you talk about the back end, because we don't always know what's happening in terms
Right.
of how it's made, the chemistry, which is very, very interesting, by the way, but
Yeah.
also like how you are developing like color, because it seems limitless, and because there's so much color that you keep
Right.
producing color. How
Right. Right.
how does that work?
Well, we have a lab in Flanders, New Jersey with over 100 chemists, and a key component of the labs is our color lab. We have a lab specifically committed to color, and they're constantly working on prescriptioning to ensure that our colors have the greatest, wear, fidelity, depth. That's really what they focus on, and it's technology. It really is. It's
Yeah.
for most people, color's emotional. But
Right.
for that group, it's all about technology. It's not about emotion. Not that maybe they're not emotional about color, but
Right,
their
right.
job is really to ensure we have colors that look great on surfaces once applied. And that's what they focus on. And there's a group of people that just do great work out there. That's what they do all day, every day. And we recognize for us, color's a differentiator. So we spend lots of time, effort, money to ensure our palette is at the top end. It just is important to us. It's important to our stakeholders, our customers. And so we do spend a lot of time and effort on the color.
3,500 colors and counting? Is it something
Yeah,
like that?
yeah, 3,500 colors for sure. And you can see a lot of them probably behind me.
Yeah.
There's lots of color choices for folks if you're dealing with Benjamin Moore.
Yeah. How do you keep track? Do you know all the names? Okay.
No,
No.
that's not my strength. Not my strength. I have some favorites, but that's not my strength.
That's what I was going to ask you. What colors are some of your favorites?
Mine, I like blues, so I like Hail Navy. I like Gentleman's Gray. I actually, and I know this sounds like a pitch, but our newest color of the year, Aegean Teal, I think is a great color, particularly at this time. Those are some of my favorites. I like whites, so I like Linen White. I like Balboa Mist. I mean, there's some colors. If you came to my home, you'd see those up on the walls, and I feel very comfortable in those colors. So.
You were telling me about that early on, blues were kind of tricky.
Yeah, that's all chemistry.
Yeah.
The way that they had to process raw material to make blues was very labor intensive, and also the fidelity of those blues weren't great. So they had a tendency to fade more easily, not last as long. So they weren't necessarily preferred. It was just technology. And as we've developed over time, our blues hold up as well as any colors out there. And that, again, all comes back to technology and the way we manufacture and how we manufacture and what we do differently than others. So, we have great technology in our products and our colors.
Okay, Dan, so what are you looking forward to in the future?
I'm really looking forward to, like all of us, some more normal way of working together. The things that we've missed over the last year of being together, working shoulder to shoulder, just that networking, that whole notion of social capital, how important that is to all of us, I think has been missed. And while we've done a great job navigating our way through this, I can't wait till that kind of activity is more prevalent again and we're working together, collaborating together, and all those great things we've missed this last year.
Yes, I can't wait for that too. Like I say that one of the blessings is that we have this technology that's connecting us so that we're actually able to talk right now and feel our energy together, but it's nothing like being in person for sure. So first of all, thanks for all you've done. Growing up in the brand is amazing. And thank you to Ben Moore. Some things change for sure, but others should never. And you still live, and this is incredible, you still live your brand values from 1883, everybody, 138 years old, of integrity, intelligence, and commitment to the industry. And I really want to thank you.
Well, thank you, Cindy. It's been wonderful being with you. I want to thank you. I want to thank everybody that supports Benjamin Moore. It really is about all of us. And so thank you very much.
Yeah, hooray, it's a Benjamin Moore Takeover Day, yay!
Thank you.
Hey design friends, this is Cindy Allen, Editor-in-Chief of Interior Design again, and it's Benjamin Moore Takeover Day all day today, and aren't we all lucky? Aren't you loving it? Right now, I want you to imagine we're going to go to Flanders, New Jersey, to their impressive laboratory facility. We're going to take a tour and get a little behind the scenes while talking about paint and your favorite aura. And with me today is Harriet Martins, project manager for Benjamin Moore. Hi, Harriet. How are you?
Hi, Cindy. I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. You know, I feel a lucky gal because I have been there, and I will always think of Flanders as Benjamin Moore,
Yes.
always, because I never heard of Flanders, New Jersey before. But it is so like you drive up and you're like taken back because the first thing you see is the test farm, which looks like
Right.
a glorious art installation. But why don't you, so designers, we just drove up and we're at the test farm. Tell us about the test farm.
Great. Yeah. So our test farm is within our facility, which is 80,000 square feet. And what we do on the test farm is it's really a torture test for some of our exterior paints. We put product out there, and some of the product has been out there for years, decades, really taking the time to understand how the paint will react to different elements. And being that we live in New Jersey, we get a little bit of everything. We get rain, snow, sleet. So it's really that torture test to understand in a real life scenario, how will these paints react, making sure that we're producing the highest quality, durable products that we can.
Yeah, so so you're testing, but tell us like the key things you're testing for.
Sure. So we're testing for things like surfactant leaching, making sure that the paint won't peel, and specifically that the paint won't fade. So those are three definite problems that are out there that we want to solve for, and making sure that we're solving for them not just in the short term, but in the long term, because it's such a big investment when you paint your home that you want to make sure that not only is the color beautiful and it's what you want, but that it's going to stand the test of time. And that's what the test farm gives us, is that view of those problem areas and how we can solve for them.
Yeah, I mean, it makes so much sense. And look, you need to be somewhere where there's a lot of land because
Yes.
it goes on forever. You have a lot of paint to test, right?
Absolutely. And we have actually boards that have been out there for decades, just trying to learn different things, different formulas that are out there. We have our own paints, we have competitive paints, so it's making sure that we're broad in our view of what we're testing, and we're testing different colors, in addition to different formulations. So making sure there's a myriad of things out there, so we can learn and adjust and really blend that into our formulations.
Yeah, no, and it is so gorgeous, I have to say, that any designer should come out there just to go and see the test farm. But let's talk about R&D, research and development, and this is a huge facility. Why don't you tell us how big it is and how many chemists are there? Give us a scoop.
Yes. So we have 8 different labs within Flanders, and each one focuses on a different area. So for example, we'll have our interior lab, and of course they're focused on interior paints, and our exterior lab will focus on exterior paint. So making sure that there's experts in each of those fields, because an interior project is different than an exterior project. So there's different things to look for and different expertise. So we have about 100 people on staff there. So between chemists, chemical engineers, a lot of support staff, really the best of the best, all coming together to produce the highest quality products that our customers are looking for.
Yeah, we don't always think about it in these terms either, but you're also working on patents for everything too, right?
Right. So our mantra is all about innovation and making sure that, we're coming to the table with cutting edge technologies. And because of that, we have about 46 patents out there, over 100 foreign patents. So
Yeah.
it's pretty impressive.
Yeah, it really is. Okay, so I'm there, we're at the lab. There's going to be a lot of things we don't understand, and we don't want to get too scientific about it either. We are designers after all, but can you tell us how a product actually does get formulated?
I can. So it really starts with a concept or an idea. And then with that, we meet with our chemists just so they can understand, what does that end state look like? What does that final product look like?
Yeah.
And then it takes a lot of formulation work. At times it could be, a few years. In other cases, it could be many years. But it's all in making sure that we're crafting the right ingredients. But it's also not just about the right ingredients, but making sure there's a balance and a customization of those ingredients in order to achieve those attributes that we're looking for those specific projects. So it takes a lot of formulation work, but I will say it does take a lot of testing as well, testing and adjusting as we go along. And we have all of those different test methods within our Flanders facility for us to do that.
You talk about ingredients, and actually high quality ingredients. So what are a few of those, and explain that to us?
Right. So one of the key ingredients within paint is the resin, and for us, we develop the majority of our resins. So those are developed by our chemists. We own them, and they're specific to our products. So that's a key ingredient that we use in our paint. The other being colorants. That's also, we have our own proprietary colorants that we've developed as well that we use in our products. So those are two of the key ingredients that we are lucky enough to be able to have the talent and the innovation to develop.
Yeah, I learned a little bit too, like that resin works best with pigments and additives work best with resins or something like that, right?
Right. There's definitely a balance. So depending on what the product is, there's that the intricacies of those things coming together and working. And there's trade-offs, and you have to balance those trade-offs and making sure that you're putting in the right amount of each ingredient, and making sure that there's as minimal trade-offs as possible.
Yeah, the hard stuff that makes it look like easy when it's figured out, right?
Exactly.
Okay, so let's move on to a big innovation and really a favorite in the industry, which is Aura, right? So when first was it developed, and what problems were you trying to solve with Aura?
So we launched Aura back in 2007, and the mission was to develop the best can of paint that we could across all attributes. But really, it was to make sure that there was no color that was off limits. So at that time, a problem was that if you wanted a deeper color, potentially that color would not be as durable. So for us, the mission was to develop the best paint in terms of color depth and richness, but making sure that it was going to last and be durable, and that there would be no trade-off whether you want something like Simply White or you want something deep like Caliente. You're going to be able to get your color choice without any trade-off to the performance that you needed to have.
All right, so there are specific proprietary technologies with Aura. Would you share them with us?
Sure. So with Aura, it is about continuing to be the best in the industry. So with that, we're excited that we're coming out with the reformulation or the next generation of Aura. And with that, there's 3 exclusive technologies that we've developed behind it. One is going back to that resin. So there's a brand new resin that we've developed after a few years of formulation, which is exclusive to Aura. And it's a resin that has, and not to get too techy again, but it has these copolymers. And what that means is just it's building durability, more durability into the product. So that's one of the innovations behind the reformulation of Aura. We'll still have color lock technology, which is another proprietary technology exclusive to Aura again. And with color lock technology, it's embedding those pigments into the paint. So as you can imagine, you don't want pigments sitting on the surface. You want them to really get locked into the paint in order for them not to be able to rub off, and in order for you to have that durability as well. And then the third piece is the colorants.
Now, I just want people to kind of understand, because some of it, I mean, sounds really good, but some of it we don't understand as well, which is okay. But you were trying to solve problems that were happening in the paint world, right? So can you kind of explain some of the problems that you were having?
Yeah, I think one of the problems was really that, depending on your color choice, that you would have to make a trade-off. So with that, it was making sure that there's durability across the full spectrum of colors, whether it's a light color or a deep color. And at the same time, it was making sure that the aesthetic was not compromised either, so that you have color richness and depth and that very smooth finish that you want. So from an aesthetic perspective, you're getting that color vitality that you need, but at the same time, the color is going to be long-lasting and durable and not be resistant to scuff and stains, color rub-off, all of the things that you need in terms of that investment to your project.
You talk about a Genex color technology, right?
Yes, so we have Genex Colorants, which is our colorant platform for all of our products.
Uh-huh. Yeah, explain that a little bit.
Sure. So with Genex Colorants, which we launched in tandem actually with Aura back in 2007, our Genex Colorants were solving the problem that when you added colorant into the paint, you were actually degrading the paint. So it was, and with Genex Colorants instead, not only is it the complete opposite, you're not degrading the paint, but you're making the paint that much better. So with our Genex Colorants, it's improving hide, it's improving durability, it's improving the application of the product. So that was really groundbreaking then and now, because it's still a technology that hasn't been replicated.
Right. I love it's all spectrums too. So it's like the richness of color, but also the cleanest of whites, right?
Exactly, and that's exactly what we were trying to achieve with Aura, just making sure you have the cleanest of whites to the deepest of reds. So again, just having that flexibility, that color choice without needing to trade off on anything else.
Yeah, what's one of your favorite colors where you feel, because you talk about it like very passionately about those like deep colors?
Yeah, one of my favorite colors actually that I just painted one of our rooms in is New York State of Mind. So I am definitely a blue person, and that deep blue of New York State of Mind is something that I just finished painting one of our bedrooms in.
Oh, really? Okay, designers out there, check it out. New York State of Mind, deep blue. All right, so it took like 5 or 6 years, I think you were said, to develop Aura.
Yes, so back when we launched in 2007, it was definitely 5 or 6 years in the making. And now the reformulation as well took about 3 or 4 years to really, it was already the best can of paint. So our challenge and our mission to our chemists was, how do you make it more perfect than what it is today? And they delivered by, again, looking at new innovations, new technologies, and really formulating something that could still give us that color depth and richness, but then looking at longevity and dry film properties and making sure that it will be long lasting as well.
Yeah, so okay, so let's fast forward to today and tell us what is happening in the marketplace right now.
So I think customers are definitely more critical of their choices and what they're using in their home. So we've seen that as, top of mind, making sure that they're investing in something that's worth it and making that investment in their home, and looking for products that are worth the investment and that are going to give them the longevity that they need.
Yeah. And the designers really respond to Aura, don't they?
They do. Yeah, it's actually, when we came out with it in 2007, we knew it was great, but having that affirmation from the design community, it's one of the products that is used and spec'd a lot. We get a lot of accolades about Aura in terms of the color depth and richness, about the fact that it's durable, so it's definitely become a favorite, and of course that makes us extremely happy.
Harriet, tell us about Color Stories.
So Color Stories is a very sophisticated palette that we have. It's about 240 colors. And one of the interesting things about it is that it's a multi-pigment formula. So typically you have products that only have 3 to 4 pigments, but in Color Stories' case, you have about 6 to 7 pigments. And there's also the omission of black. So that accentuated response to lighting gives you potentially one look in the morning versus a different look in the evening.
Yeah, this is a little quicker course. Black makes it easier, but it's kind of like a quick fix, but it's not the right fix. Instead, using colors instead of using black makes it richer and deeper, right?
Correct, yes.
Yeah, because we do that in printing too.
Yes.
So I love that. I love that when you talk about that, I'm like, oh my God, I know that. I know that. Yeah, fantastic. Okay, Harriet. So what colors are designers specifying right now? What are you guys seeing in the market?
So what we're seeing right now is definitely a desire for colors that are more tranquil, more soothing. So with that, we're seeing blue really stand out a little bit more than the other colors as a favorite.
Mm. And you had and you just did that. You were proof pudding, right? You just painted blue, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. All right, Harriet. Well, first of all, I love the lab. I love going there. The test farm is amazing. Thanks for all the science. I feel a little smarter and a whole lot more inspired. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Cindy. And we hope to have you back out as soon as we can.
I'm coming. I'm coming. With some designers.
The women's building is an space that are made for women, by women.
It's a place where women and families and immigrants and communities feels really safe.
I recognize the building as the heart of San Francisco.
The communities that come to use the services of the women's building deserve to have a beautiful place. For the women's building to have a collaboration with Benjamin Moore, it has a big meaning for us.
Taking care of, some of the maintenance of the building makes a lot of difference for the money that we can focus our programs to be and to deliver to the community that right now needs the most help.
Para mí es un honor poder trabajar para este edificio tan emblemático de San Francisco y sobre todo usar productos de Benjamin Moore que son de alta calidad.
The building is from 1910 and now you see all these walls and it's like a new building.
One thing that I love about it is that it's so colorful, like also in the inside now, so it just represents our community that's super vibrant and super diverse.
I'm serious, I started crying. And I really, really want to thank the National Trust and Benjamin Moore for this gift to the thousands of families, women that come to the Women's Building.
Hey everybody, this is Cindy Allen, Editor-in-Chief of Interior Design, and this is a Benjamin Moore Takeover Day. Hooray. Now, right now, I'm with Mike Mundwiller. He's the Field Development Manager for Benjamin Moore, although he's best known as the paint guru. Mike is going to give us that out in the field perspective because he's the main liaison between the brand, field sales, and the lab. And we're going to get the inside scoop on what really goes on some interesting and complex projects as it relates to paint, and tips you really need to know because Mike has all the answers. Hi, Mike. How are you?
Hi, Cindy. Fantastic. How are you?
Great. It's great to see you. I want to get started because I hear you've been with Benjamin Moore for a long time. Tell everybody.
I have. I've had the honor of serving the company for the last 32 years. Anything from field sales, sales management to industrial coatings engineer. It's really been a blessing. It's been a great career.
All right, you have to tell me, because everyone's going to want to know, like, how did you get that title of being the paint guru?
That's, first of all, that's an honor to be called the paint guru.
It is.
Also to have been called the paint geek. So I think that's really how you get going at being a guru is you really, you get geeky about paint. It's just something that I find fascinating, the chemistry of paint. Even though I am not a chemist, we're fortunate to be blessed with great chemists at Benjamin Moore. But it just really piqued my interest. And of course, once that happens, the education begins. You do research. You really strive to want to help others out. And that can be of our people to our customers. So you try to learn as much as possible, but really simply paint fascinates me.
And still does. See, that's the thing, right? So many years later, that's kind of amazing. So you've been through a lot of different jobs. So explain exactly what out in the field means. Like, all right, now you're in lockdown, but if it was a normal life, what would it look like for you?
I think we all miss the normal life. And you know what it is, it's the interaction with the people, with the customers, with my coworkers within the company. You know, it's the places that you go. Being a paint representative is just absolutely amazing. I and my coworkers have been in some great facilities. You know, any place from stadiums to art museums, just Johnson Space Center when I was very young. I would have never had the opportunity of getting into those types of places if I didn't have this position as being the paint rep. And subsequently, it's really the people that you meet are extremely interesting. You know, it's looking back on it, I feel very fortunate for my time in the paint business.
Yeah. Wait, but tell me so you're out there in the field. I know you're figuring out sort of complex problems on projects. So kind of give us a view of this.
Sure. In our services, we are on a lot of projects, and naturally, we're always looking for what's going to be, you know, system-wise, specification-wise, what's going to set the project up for success. So when we do get out into the field and we are on a project, we're typically looking for such things as what is the substrate that we're coating? What is the environment that the coating is in? Most important to me, obviously, is really looking at it from a standpoint of what are the customer's expectations for this project? We want to make sure that we're designing a system, a specification, working with that designer, that architect in writing those specifications to where we're really setting up for long-term success of the coatings project. And naturally, too, there are other factors besides substrate environment and exposure. But also too, what type of surface preparation, because I'm sure you know, surface preparation is extremely key when it comes to coatings projects. So that's definitely the challenge that we have, and we're up to the challenge in the field.
Benjamin Moore has like A&D, architectural and designer reps, right? So, but they might call you, okay, Mike, I've got this thing. And what would that be? And then what were you trying to resolve?
Yeah, it's interesting because when you said that, what I think of is the individual that could possibly say, now I've seen it all. Well, you know, the paint business, it's funny like that. It's something different all the time. Even myself in the business, 35 years in total. I never stop and say, well, now I've really seen it all, because it can vary. You know, it can be anything from, say, adhesion type issues. It can be color issues and so forth like that. So it's always different. It's never really the same. And I think that's that spice that really keeps it interesting. This, some may think that the coatings industry it's got to be kind of boring, but it's
no. All right. I know that you were like hanging from the Capitol building in some sort of renovation. Can you tell us that story?
Yeah, that was just a fantastic opportunity. We were called in at Benjamin Moore to work with the contractor the architect of the Capitol also, and designed the specification and the subsequent prep and coatings that would be used. My involvement started in December of 2015. I have to make an admission, and admission is I am scared of heights. Somewhere along the line, I developed a fear of heights, even though I jumped out of planes, skydived in college. So that was a lot of scaffolding work, but what an honor it was to go into the rotunda, to go up to the top. You have the portrait of Washington ascending to heaven. And the project of the day is to design the system of preparation for the 1860 cast iron. And it was a very interesting, very historic type project. By the way, the iron itself, the ornamental iron, it has the original coating on it. So naturally, the challenge is of old coating. There's only one adhesive coat of paint on there. Every other coating after that is a cohesive coat, and you're really held to the mercy of that first coat. And by the way, it's a well-known fact that in 1860 it was oil and it was lead. Yeah. So and naturally, being that this is the People's House, the United States Capitol, they don't want to shut it down, and rightfully so. And subsequently, so we had to design the surface preparation and the coating system to be able to use it during the occupation that the building was in use. So everything turned out great, and I can't say that's an everyday occurrence, but it's definitely one example of how exciting the paint business can be.
Okay, so that's on a very fabulous and fancy scale. But for designers out there, it's good for them to really understand that behind the scenes, there are people trying to work on all scales of projects to make sure that the result is going to be as they intended, right? So give us another example of maybe a more regular project.
Yeah, I would have to say that regular, everyday type of occurrences are the homes, homes that the designers had. They create that vision, and subsequently with that vision, which starts with color. We help fill in that with the surface preparation recommendations, the general specifications that come with that. But also too, it's extremely important to tie product in there. Obviously color is probably the major driver, right, of the paint. It's that coatings are designed for beautification and for protection.
But give us one more example. So we had the Capitol, and then you spoke generally about homes, which is great. But do you have another story that you can share?
Yeah, one that pops to mind is we're probably all domed out here, the rotunda, but I also too was involved in the re-gold leafing of the state of Colorado dome building.
Wow.
So, and it's not something that we obviously do not manufacture gold leaf, but we did have a contractor who's a very good contractor relationship-wise that was doing the gold leaf, and subsequently needed to understand what's called the surface profile of the substrate. And surface profile is an anchor pattern. So we were able to climb that building. Goodness, it's amazing, even though I'm scared of heights, to get on top of a dome. And
there you go again.
A simple profile test with a micrometer and what's called test tape, and be able to assure them of the profile readings that we're reading, and subsequently if it's meeting the specification of the architect and so forth like that. That happened very soon after the Capitol building.
Oh, really?
And okay. I really thought I was going to have to declare that I was out of the dome business.
I was going to say, can you give us a non-dome?
Yeah, non-dome. Goodness gracious, non-dome. I can think of from a commercial perspective, it could be Ford Motor Company, North Kansas City, installation of floor epoxies. And they were producing the F-150 in North Kansas City, and also to the Contour. If you remember the Contour, the Ford Contour,
Wow.
is another one comes to mind. Yeah, it's and I would say that many hospitals, many stadiums, many stadiums. Which, as a sports fanatic myself, I enjoy going into those systems.
Of course. And what are their primary issues that you find?
Yeah, the primary issues is number one is obviously the representation of their brand, and that brand really is they want they need that paint to look very good. And remember, there's a connection here with color too. Obviously, these baseball and football franchises, NFL and MLB, they have colors, and color accuracy is so important, extremely important. And that's a really something that I would like to be as the takeaway here is when it comes to color, it's amazing how when they say that any manufacturer can match the color of any other manufacturer. And I can tell you that that is not true.
Not true. It's not true.
As a matter of fact, I was conducting a paint test this week with contractors, and we were using one of our more challenging colors, which is simply white. And as you know, simply white is a very clean white, beautiful. Clean.
I like it. Yeah.
Yeah, but the challenge with simply white is that with titanium dioxide, and once again, not to geek you out, but you reach the point of saturation with your TiO2. By the way, your titanium dioxide is what causes a paint to hide. But there reaches a point where you just can't put any more in because you're not going to get the return in it. And by the way, that's it's going to be a new strength of Aura, is that hide of the clean whites will be fantastic. But not to name names, but I did want to do a comparison in my contractor testing this week. So I did procure a gallon from a competitor and asked them to tint it in simply white. And it was evident that contractors in blind tests were definitely aware and pointed out in their surveys that the colors did not match. As a matter of fact, simply white on a light, an LRV, a light reflectance value, it's 92. And so it's really, really white. And unfortunately, the match we had with the competitor who claimed it to be simply white, we had a LRV of 86. So there was a noticeable difference there. So I can't encourage anyone enough to make sure you check your colors. It's your vision.
Right.
You want your vision to not only be accurate, but you want your vision to last. And that's really the combination at Benjamin Moore that we're able to provide is not only the right color, but also to put in the right product so that it lasts.
Yeah. And Mike, like we all know, designers really know that all whites are not created equal, right?
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. It's important that we really not just pick the color and hopefully the right color. And it's been great working with designers through the years who have an amazing sense of color that, quite honestly, I'm more of a product person. And we have fabulous people at Benjamin Moore that work in our color department. And of course, over our 40 plus architectural and design reps in the field that work along with our field sales representatives. So it's really, when we have that, we see that vision from the designer, from that architect, well, then it's now up to us to make those recommendations to really execute the vision, and not just execute it for the short term, but to provide long-term protection with the paint. So the keys that I see here are not just the color, but also making that association with product.
There's some very important takeaways for this. And the first one is, as you're saying, that it's not paint versus color. It's not just picking a color, because designers spend a lot of times picking a color. It's the whole product, right? So explain that to them.
I'd like to start that explanation by looking at it from an example of, say, someone who I admire architecturally, and that's Frank Lloyd Wright. And of course, we know that Frank Lloyd Wright was form and function. And with that form, I see form in relation to Benjamin Moore as being the color. And function, of course, is the performance, not just from the application characteristics, but the very important post-application characteristics like washability, color retention, extremely important.
Tell us a story that you would consider an innovation.
We have so many great stories of innovation with such fabulous chemists. And take, for example, a high humid area like a bathroom, right? A simple bathroom that, let's face it, most would think, well, you know what, here's the color, fantastic choice of color, but also to, let's just put say a wall paint in that environment. And of course, naturally, a lot of humidity created bath showers, so forth like that. And that can be tough on a regular coating. But being able to match the right product, in this case, the example that I'll use is our Aura Bath and Spa, which ironically is a matte, which chemically makeup speaking, a matte's not really your best choice for a high humidity area, but our chemists were able to accommodate us. And of course, that matte gives it that depth, that color, that depth. But what we need is we needed that protection from the humidity that's generated. And subsequently, when the right product is not used, a very unusual discoloration happens on that wall.
Okay, Mike, I want you to geek out on how Aura Bath and Spa was developed.
With Aura Bath and Spa, we were able to take a latex product available in 3,500 plus colors, give it that matte, that depth type perceptive look, and subsequently be able to resist that high humidity climate. And without revealing too many secrets, I can tell you that it's really a fantastic story between a hydrophobic versus a hydrophilic, the two main types of resins, to where the key is that coating designed by our chemist absorbs the moisture in such a way that it's able to evenly distribute it or let it go, and therefore not resulting in that unsightly, what we call surfactant leaching.
Yeah, I mean, it's so interesting that we accept certain things that then takes, a brilliant chemist or that type of innovation. And then all of a sudden, oh my God, we have an answer. So that's such an amazing story on that, like all paint is not created equal. What about some other factors when considering like selecting a product?
Yeah, to me, it really starts with that customer's expectations. There, as you said very well, not all paint is the same. There are different lines of paints with any paint manufacturer. There are any, naturally there are different sheens in those lines.
Yeah.
So really understanding that customer's expectations is key. And I'm sure that our designers, the designers that I've worked with are very good at that. They understand that. And then naturally, when we get into the paint world, we're looking at the substrate. Obviously, the substrate could have needed to be sealed. A substrate could need something to gain adhesion to. Yeah. That's where primers, some have the opinion that primers are just paint, but I can tell you that primers serve their purpose. And subsequently, besides the fact of what coating system is used, is really what surface preparation can be done. Back to the Capitol, we were very limited in the type of surface preparation that we could do, and therefore we had to make it work with some unusual methods. But that's really I know what all of what our designers and our architects face on a day in, day out. It's always really taking the situation and making it the best as it can be.
And then, of course, also interior versus exterior, right?
Absolutely. Definitely a challenge. Both interior and exterior have their own unusual challenges. Especially if you take, for example, the exterior, that UV resistance, that sun can be pretty tough. But then again, though, there is UV exposure on the inside of facilities. And of course, things like mildew and dirt pickup, dirt release, and so forth like that. So it definitely brings its challenges to formulations.
The other thing you were talking to me about that is almost an obvious, but we don't think about it. You were saying how you want to get the paint on the walls, you want it to look the way you imagine it as a designer, but you talk about how long it will last. You want it to still look the same way far ahead, right?
Yes, and we strive for that. And that is the whole project of Aura, Aura Interior is we know it's the finest paint we've ever made. We realize that we found ways to make it better. So making it better really deals with that color in depth, that unparalleled color, but also to that protection, that long-term protection. And I'm sorry to geek out on you on this.
I love that.
if we look at paint, from a standpoint of its components, you have the resin, which is really the backbone, the glue, right? And then you have the pigment. The big challenge is when we talk about long-term service life, talk about that resin encapsulating that pigment. Therefore, there's nothing worse than a beautiful color on a wall and somebody scrapes up against it and that color burnishes or the color comes off. And subsequently, that was really the even though Aura was very good with those characteristics, surprisingly, we found a way to make Aura even better. So that's I'm very excited about that innovation and the release of that product line.
Yeah, no, Aura is like amazing. And I remember talking about exactly what you were saying, like how do you have that depth of color, but how does it last? So it is exciting. And I love to hear you geek out. Okay, wait. So I wanted to ask you a little bit about the certifications you were talking to me about that you also need to be mindful of.
Absolutely. I'd really like to start that by saying that I'm so proud of my company being so sustainable. We were the first to take lead out of paint back in the late 60s.
Yeah.
And when I think of certifications and standards, it really starts with the betterment of the environment. And with that said, such things as, of course, LEED certifications, emissions certifications are very, very, very popular for us. We're committed to that. So when I think of certifications and I think of specifications and standards, it really starts with the protection to the customer who's either using the product or who's exposed to the product. And therefore, we're definitely very active with these organizations. MPI is an example of an organization that is really centered around paint performance. Naturally, that's one way that we can contribute to show that not all paint is the same. But there's a number of different certifications out there, from asthma and allergy to LEED and so forth like that. Because we definitely are committed to the environment. Paint, yes, is a chemical, but we make it as safe as possible.
Yeah, I mean, everyone's talking about wellness these days. It's going to be a conversation moving forward for years and years to come, right?
And I hope the conversation never ends.
Yeah.
We just we all do our part for the betterment of the environment.
Yeah, for sure. There's also, I understand that you can provide assistance for surfaces that are really hard to coat, right? Designers have these issues.
Those substrates are definitely out there, those challenging substrates. Our field representatives, such as our architectural and design representatives, along with our field sales territory representatives, are well trained in identifying those types of substrates. They're really just a phone call and email away. And of course, www.benjaminmoore.com. Find your rep, and you will be able to connect with a Benjamin Moore representative. And I can tell you that that's really the highlight. I personally know the majority of our field representatives out there. And as you know, I'm very passionate. They're very passionate too. And once again, it's really about the people that you meet along the way and to be able to help out. And we have a very well-trained field personnel that are charged with going out and serving the design community.
Yeah, I mean, that's what's so special is for the designers out there to know, like, in many ways, no project is too small to get support from your local rep at Benjamin Moore, right?
That is so true. You know, it's easy for me to talk about the major, you know, the very large historic type projects, but I can tell you that the majority of my career has been great to where I'm on, you know, small houses. And naturally, we also too have the great benefit of the knowledge base in our independent retail channels. Because as you know, Benjamin Moore is independent retailers, family-owned businesses that are very knowledgeable, that also too make those visits onto project sites in order to ensure success. So it's really a good collaboration. You know, and I can think of another thing that a service that our field representatives can provide, and that's that contact that can be made connecting, say, for example, the designer or the architect with the paint contractor themselves, because naturally they associate with good paint contractors, and you know, the team then really gets built. And when I say the team, you know, those that are executing the project, the designer, the Benjamin Moore representative, and the paint contractor, along with the services of the independent paint store. And now we really are setting ourselves up for a successful project.
Yeah, it's all a relationship. You were saying how, you know, contractors, they end up knowing the paint so well that they even like can sense if there's a difference, right? Because they're so used to the paint and how it and the surfaces. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's it shouldn't amaze me, but I can tell you that it still does to this day. I can be speaking with a contractor who I've never met before, and they can tell you things about your products that, quite honestly, it's just amazing. You know, there might have been a small raw material change, but it showed up in, say, the drag or lack of drag and the brushing ability of a product. So it's very interesting to get that perspective. I mean, let's face it, you know, we have fabulous chemists. We have a fabulous lab in Flanders, New Jersey. I know you've been there. And, but you know, those are lab conditions. So when I say that, you know, we're very mindful. As a matter of fact, my current position in regards to testing with end users, contractors, and do-it-yourselfers. You know, it's one thing for a product to perform in the lab, but my job and the job of many in our organization is get the product out of the lab, get it into the hands of those applicators, and let's see if it really works. And, you know, there's no better judge of the quality of the product than those customers that are using it every single day.
Right color, right product. All paint is not created equal. Ben Moore has experts and educators out in the field that want to assist you, and especially ask for Mike, the paint guru. And we are so thankful that Benjamin Moore is our trusted source, kind of like family for the design industry. And really, we want to thank you, Mike.
Cindy, it's really been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
At the end of the day, design is psychology. You're creating a sense of well-being for a client.
That just ability to witness the world is such an integral part of what we do, because we are there to kind of edit it and give it back.
We avoid repeating ourselves in projects because every project is so different. They really are a reflection of the client through our lens.
I do love the simplicity of paint. I love how you can completely transform a space.
If you change the wall cover, you change the feeling.
This home should reflect the people who live in it.
We do things that have personality, that have warmth, and that really tell a story.
Today, people don't want just design. They really want a story.
Home wants to tell a story of who you are, how you live.
It's not unique to us, the reference to story and narrative. It's just we all have our own ways of telling stories.
So we have all followed along and continue to follow along on your Instagram as you restore Chateau.
That's my passion and my addiction.
This is your passion, your addiction. It's been so interesting to see how you have restored the Chateau, and particularly you've done a lot of posts about paint.
Yes.
And I have just been on my phone and been so transfixed by how you've used paint at the Chateau. Talk a little bit about, some of the colors and how you've used, I think, Benjamin Moore paint specifically to transform and restore.
Yes, it's interesting because Benjamin Moore is fairly new to Europe, and I'm so thrilled that they are there now because they have an expertise that has been incredibly helpful to me on this new Chateau. I've worked with them. We've discussed what the surfaces are. They've sort of taught me things that I never even knew. I kind of was embarrassed that as a designer, I did not know some of the things that you use a different paint on a plastered wall versus a drywall. We don't have drywall in the Chateau, but I never knew that there was a difference between that. Different kinds of types of paints for different surfaces. So they've been incredibly helpful in helping me with that. They also, I think what I've learned is I've actually taken off all the centuries and the layers of paint. Part of my passion for doing this with these old structures is it's almost a form of urban archaeology, because as you start to take off layer upon layer, you start to see, oh gee, it was painted this color at this point, and then before that it was painted in another color, and you start to get a sense of what's in fashion, what the periods were, and how choices are made. So I've loved that, and taking off all the layers of paint, getting back to the raw wood. It has some of the most incredible carved paneling room, very detailed with three-dimensional birds and fruits and just amazing things. If you had just painted all of that white, all the details would just sort of disappear. But by actually picking out through color, through paint, some of these details, you actually appreciate it so much more. So it's been really so much fun to get to choose those colors and figure out what's going to accentuate the architectural detailing that makes the place so special in the first place.
You transition the color from room to room, and I want to hear from you. How, as a designer, do you make that cohesive? So if you want to vary the paint color from room to room, yet not have it be too disparate, and how it all works together.
I think it's interesting. You have to go back to the architecture. Architecture where the room very clearly flows from one to another, and there's a lot of big open spaces that go onto each other. You have to be more concerned with that cohesion. If you have a series of rooms that are not connected, I think you can go from blue to yellow to green without the same problem. I don't think it's a mandatory that you sort of say, I'm going to limit my palette to these three colors for this house or this apartment. I think you've got more freedom when there are separations of rooms. When there are not separations, then I really do try to find what is going to be the connector. At my last Chateau, I decided to use green as the connective color, and it was used as the trim in rooms. And so it wasn't in every room, but you got a sense as you were going through, that was a big 45,000 square foot Chateau, that you had some sense of connection with the different rooms that was done through the green. And I intentionally chose green because I wanted to remind you of nature and the connection between that property and the gardens outside.
My name is Danielle Colding, and I'm principal and interior designer at Danielle Colding Design. My most unexpected color combo is mixing jewel tones like oxblood and teal and aubergine with sort of those clay taupey colors, so those like sandy neutrals. My favorite front door color is shiny black. The color that makes me smile is a deep, deep, deep teal. The color that relaxes me is a pale, earthy, sagey green. Ooh. Oh boy. The colors that dominate my closet, because I'm a New Yorker, are black, 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 and black. My current go-to kitchen color is black. My go-to manicure color is classic red in all of the shades. Heaven is not linen white. Heaven is either simply white or a really, really pale ethereal lavender. The most extraordinary ceiling color I'm currently considering, but have not done yet, is a high gloss lavender icy color. If I were a paint color, I would be teal. I don't know. What would I create? Like, everything exists. The color that I would create, if I could, would be the perfect sandy terracotta blush medley. My favorite car color is black. On black, on black. The exterior of my dream house in the south of France would be the perfect clean white. My favorite flower color is magenta, shades of pink. I love that for flowers.
Hi everyone, I'm Andrea Magno, Director of Color Marketing and Development for Benjamin Moore. And today I am so excited to be joined with Danielle Colding. And Danielle, if you want to tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, hi, my name is Danielle Colding. I'm an interior designer, the owner and principal of Danielle Colding Design here in New York City. I do residential projects as well as commercial projects, and I've been in the business since 2002 and on my own since about 2007.
Nice, very nice. And today we're here to talk obviously about color. We're both very enthusiastic about using color in our work, and I love how our tops kind of match with my background. It's like we didn't even plan it. Love that. But I'm really intrigued by how you approach color in your work, and how do you start with color, and what role does it play?
So color is pretty much the foundation of the work that I do. And I sort of approach it in two ways. I love big, bold color, but I sort of, when I walk into a space, I look at the architecture. I talk to the clients. There are sort of three factors. It's like my sort of initial idea about the color, the architecture and what it calls for, and also the clients. Like, if they hate yellow, I'm probably not giving them a whole yellow room. And then from there, I decide, is this a space that calls for sort of color everywhere? Do we want the bold color on the wall with maybe artwork? Or do we want it to be more light and airy, and then I infuse the space with color? So thinking built-ins, ceiling, even all of the moldings. So I sort of have an approach where I get color in, but it sort of depends on the space how exactly that happens.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree, because I feel like there are certain spaces that you walk into, and just depending upon the architecture of it, it'll really call for, having a really bold color maybe in a smaller space, and then it opens up, there's great windows, lots of light, and, I know people ask for that light and airy kind of look, and how do you work with clients who are maybe not as confident about bringing bolder colors or brighter colors into a space?
Well, I would say the great part about having so much online now is for colors, we can really, that's a way that I can show them what it feels like. So if I show them a tiny little swatch of a color, they may be overwhelmed by that. But if I say, look, like, let's paint all of your doors black, but then I can give them images that show that and show that it's not overwhelming. In fact, it's very classic, it's very approachable, and it works really well. So that has been a really good way for me to sort of make my argument. The other thing that I tell people is you really want to have contrast between your spaces. So if I have sort of a small envelope of a hallway, I want that to be really intense and bold and interesting. And then when I get to my light and airy space, you really feel that sort of like aha moment of, ah, okay, now this is like a breath of fresh air in a new space. And because you came from that dark space, you go into a light space, and it's really impactful versus everything sort of being the same note. And my clients tend to respond to that logic. It sort of makes sense to them to sort of go from small and confined to sort of big and open. They get it.
Yeah. No, and I think that makes perfect sense. And I think, a lot of times you see people are less apt to go for a really deep color or, a bolder color. But I think, to your point of having the example so that they can see it and creating these jewel boxes of color, in my experience, I've seen people are a little bit wary of using color, but then once they do it in a small space, maybe it's a powder room or something like that, it's kind of like the toe in the water, and it gets them comfortable with using something bolder, and then that becomes their favorite room in the house, and then it sort of opens the door to bring in other options. And actually, along those lines, I'm sure you have your go-to colors that you love to, your usual suspects that you like to go to.
I have to say, I always start with the historical colors from Benjamin Moore. I just feel like they're my safe, they're my go-to. I know they're going to look good. They're sort of like tried and true. And so if I want a really deep tealy green, I'll probably go to Newburgh green first to try that and say, okay, but maybe if I wanted a little more blue, I'll go to the classic colors and, find my gentleman's gray or something along those lines. But definitely for my grays, the American colors, the historical colors, my taupes, all of those I know are going to be foolproof, because those are the colors that can get really tricky. Taupes can go a little bit yellowy. You get all of these undertones that you don't necessarily expect. So when I know, like, okay, I don't want to mess around here, I just want a classic, I start with historical, and then I kind of make my way through the classics.
Yeah. And I have to say, I follow kind of a similar approach, because the historic colors, that's one of our really key collections that is great because it's rooted in history, but it's iconic today. It has so many of these colors that Benjamin Moore is really well known for. And there's something to be said for the colors that you can just choose and trust it, and that it's going to look great. But, when you have to move beyond that, I agree with you that the Benjamin Moore Classics is a perfect next step, because that's and that's a collection that is really at the cornerstone of Benjamin Moore and what has evolved over decades. And so often when I'm talking with designers, that's one of the first collections that they go to as well, just because it is time tested and it's comprehensive and it covers all of the color families, but it still has something really, I don't know, nuanced about it that makes them really, really good wall colors.
Yeah, and there's also like a creaminess or a little milkiness or warmth to them, which is a little bit different. I tend to gravitate more towards colors like that have that kind of depth and a little bit of complexity, so that in the morning, it will look a little bit different than in the evening. I tend not to go to the like super clean saturated colors as much, although when I see design work where people use that, I mean, I think it's amazing. And I think, okay, Danielle, like get outside of your box. But I will say I'm really drawn to those really like classic hues. Just feel like they're really good for layering. And the other thing about saturated color, I think, when you show people examples of them in use, and you show even like a Chinese red lacquer room or a deep, deep navy blue room, and then you show it with artwork, you show it with layers, you show it with lighter colored fabrics, people really respond to it. I think people get a little bit weary of thinking of, oh my gosh, my whole room's going to be navy. But when you show them all the layers that go in, and you just explain, like, this is really the foundational layer, it's not going to be dominant, believe it or not, even if it's a strong color.
And really just having it be, you know, this backdrop to all of the other textures and the other elements that are going on in the room. You know, it really, I personally, I don't know if you agree, I feel like the wall color can be a really key point in just being kind of the glue that brings everything together, you know, and being able to change the look so drastically, you know, I mean, even keep all of the other elements the same, but by changing the wall color, it makes so much of a difference.
Well, I mean, you see that with kitchens all the time, right? I mean, it's like the easiest and most effective way to really transform a kitchen, especially if you just have kind of white cabinets and you want to refresh. I mean, adding color to that, adding color to a built-in, it's transformative. And it can completely change the whole feel in a space. And I mean, I always say even to my clients, like what I love about paint is, especially on the walls or the trim, who cares? Like, if you don't like it, we'll just change it. It's not the end of the world.
I know.
It's not a permanent thing. And it's like one of the easiest kind of fixes you can give any space. And if it doesn't work, try again.
It's true. It's true. And you know, and everybody has their anecdote of, you know, having that problem room where you just keep trying and you're sampling, and then, you know, finally you get it right.
Yeah. Well, and on to that point, I love the samples. I love being able to buy a little sample and actually put it on the wall in a big enough square so people can kind of live with it and wake up in the morning. And what I always tell my clients is, like, walk by it and don't look directly at it. Just sort of like do a walk by and kind of let your eyes just glaze over and see what you're drawn to. And that's often a really effective way to like see which one really calls to you.
Yeah. And that's a really interesting thing too, you know, to see what sort of, I don't know, visceral reaction people have to the color and what they're drawn to and what they feel best about, whether it's in the morning light or if it's in the evening, artificial light and so forth. And yeah, I mean, we always recommend people use the samples because, you know, today so many people are shopping online and they're looking at color online, and, you know, believe me, I think it is a great starting point, and we have an array of tools that are online, and I think it's a really great narrowing piece, right? But then you have to bring it to the next step and really see what it looks like, you know? I mean, I'm sure you have lots of stories as well talking about people who will see, you know, the little sample and they're in the store or they're at their friend's house, and then they get it into their own home and it's totally different.
Completely different. I mean, I've used, so Gentleman's Gray is a color I really love. I've used it on built-ins. I used it on a custom piece of furniture recently, and it is completely different than the original built-in. The space is different, the light is different, the house is different, and it feels like a completely different color. So you do have to see it in your space, on your walls. I mean, the context is really important. And I also, you know, as we said a couple of times, the architecture, like, you know, if it is more of a modern, clean building, maybe more of that clean, saturated look is more appropriate. If it's more of a historic building, I mean, really, as I said, I love the historic colors. I just feel like they always work. And, you know, the other thing I was noticing is, you know, we're living in this time where everybody's just like on gray overload. I'm fairly done with gray. I mean, Don't get me wrong, Chelsea gray will always be a favorite. But I'm just over gray and white. Like, let's everybody move on and try something new. And so in my apartment, what I have as my neutral, as my white, is I have Healing Aloe, which is a really like sagey green. And the funny thing is about it is that it really is a neutral in the space. I have it paired with chocolate brown. I have it paired with red. I have it with teal. And even though it's technically green, it functions as the neutral. So I think we need to start thinking about that more. Like, the answer to neutral does not always have to be taupe. It does not always have to be a shade of white or a shade of gray. What I love is like the very top bar, you know, in the color fan deck, it's always such a good washed out version of whatever the deeper color is. So if like you want to pull those tones, go for one of those colors, and that can be the neutral in the room.
So Danielle, when you're working with clients, is there a particular tool from Benjamin Moore that you use in order to articulate, you know, your color ideas, or what? How do you work with the different tools? Because we offer a number of them, and you know, everyone kind of has their favorites, right?
So I always start with the fan deck. I mean, usually on my first couple of walkthroughs, I've already sort of gotten a sense of where I want to go, but then in particular, I stand in the space and I do what we're talking about. For clients, I usually try to give them a decent sized sample. So a lot of times the bigger samples, I will literally cut them and have them with the fabric so I can sort of show my intention. And a lot of people are not visual, like they're not able to visualize what that will look like. So what I try to also do is give them some other sort of visual references, some historical photos or some other instances where they can see, okay, like for instance, the black doors I mentioned, what does it look like if the whole room is white and we paint just the door satin black? So I'll give them the visuals to sort of make my case for that. Other times clients kind of, once we're in the groove and I'm really having to just pick colors as I go, which happens quite a bit. We don't usually have everything, because sometimes I'll see the room and I'll say, oh no, now we need the ceiling to kind of pop. A lot of times they let me make those decisions. So,
which is awesome.
It's
That's great.
That's when we've established
Definitely
trust,
can't complain
and they
there.
know that I'm not going to do anything too crazy.
But then I even find that, you know, when you go from the fan deck, because that's always my starting point too, and then, you know, sometimes you'll see a color in the fan deck and you say, oh my goodness, this is the perfect color, this is great. And then you look at the bigger sample that's, you know, like 8 inches by 9 inches, and it changes, you know, the color doesn't change, but maybe your perception of it changes, right? And so, you know, so I think that's, you know, another important piece to help the conversation and help people along so that they understand what the end result is going to be, you know, and just people definitely respond to seeing the bigger samples.
Yeah, absolutely. I think just because most people can't, you know, for me, if I walk in a space and I think, oh, the whole thing in teal or green, or, you know, I can visually picture that. I can picture what it will look like if we just paint all the trim out. But I think people definitely need those references. And I mean, that is the great part about having so much online material now that I would say in the beginning of my career, we didn't have. We would literally use sort of like coffee table books, or we would use sort of hardcover things. But now with, you know, Pinterest and with all these sort of inspiration boards, I can show them all of those looks. I can show them what it looks like to have a Chinese red lacquer room. And, you know, that is really helpful for sort of bridging the gap between my creative process and them understanding what they're going to get.
And even thinking about, you know, how we can use different visualizers and things like that, you know, whether it's on our website or we have our color portfolio app where you're able to just really quickly, you know, throw a color on the wall, and it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to give you a pretty good, idea of what that color is going to look like in the room, you know. And plus, we're always, you know, for me and for my team, we're always looking at understanding what are we not doing that would be great to be able to add into our array of tools? I mean, we have, on the go kits, and we have the reference set, and we have a lot of these things, but, it's really looking to continually evolve that, so that way we're providing everybody with the tools that they need so that they can have those conversations.
Yeah, I will say I love that, seeing the color in the room, because that's a way that I can really, like, on the spot, instead of like having to dig through images or do just a random search. It's really easy. I can literally say, okay, this is what this color will generally look like. It won't be exact because your space is different, but at least they can tell, like, oh no, like, I don't want to go in that direction at all, or, it's been really useful for that.
And then when it comes to specifying the color, and so this is sort of an interesting thing that I've heard a lot of different stories about, shall we say. Sometimes we'll have designers who will specify the color, but then they don't bring it all the way through to the product and the sheen. And what is your process in doing that for your specifications?
So when I specify color, I mean, my paint schedule says at the top, and this is not because I'm talking to you, it's just how I've always done business since the beginning. All paint shall be by Benjamin Moore. So for me, I've worked with a lot of contractors, and in terms of the quality of the paint, in terms of being able to do 2 coats, so that there's a quality issue, there's like an efficiency, there's a time. I don't want to use a paint where we have to do 1 million coats. It's not efficient. It's not, so I trust the products. So basically, even if I were to specify a color from another company, I would have Benjamin Moore do the match. And I've done that. And that way I know that I'm getting the quality of the paint. I know that my painter is not going to have to do 1 million coats. And I know that it's going to be what I expect, especially like I'm very familiar with all of the sheens. I'm more recently doing more matte walls and satin trim. It used to be eggshell walls and semi-gloss trim. And I think we've all kind of come down in terms of the sheen, just for regular spaces. So I'm very clear on what that's going to mean and what the space is going to look like. So I feel confident saying, this is what I want.
Yeah. And I love that you do that. That's amazing. And, and that's one of the things, it's kind of an educational piece where, we're always trying to empower the designer to say, it has to be this product, this color, this sheen, and really give the full recipe for what they're envisioning being on the wall. Because, it's not unlike if you were to specify a specific fabric for window treatments or upholstery, and then you go to install it and it's something completely different. And the installer or the, upholsterer says, well, it's close, but
close
it's
enough.
Not what I specified. No. And, and it's something that, we want, designers to understand that we produce our own colorants, our own resins. And so there are ingredients in the can that are different from anybody else. So, it's really, just making sure that you're actually getting what you wanted.
Thought. No, it's so important. I would say, especially in terms of finish, right? Because for built-ins, that you really need to they're being used, they're being touched. So you really have to be clear that this thing is going to last. Because the worst thing is to have my clients call me back for those issues. I'm like, if you want to buy 10 houses, keep calling me, but I don't want to keep coming back for, a finish issue on paint. I really don't. So, we try to set them up for longevity.
Yeah, of course. And definitely, you want to put your name behind the finished product, right? You want to be confident in the quality level and so forth. So is there a particular project that you can talk about that, you really kind of went out of your comfort zone when it came to choosing color?
Yeah, I have actually one that I've been working on for the past 2 years. and the clients are super adventurous. And so I wound up using color in a way that I really haven't before. I have a living room that's all black. And then the crown molding, which is very ornate and historic, is in your white heaven, and the ceiling, which that color, it's like a very like lavendery, purpley blue white.
Yes.
So
yeah,
you
it
know,
has that little
everyone's
undertone.
like, what color is this? Don't worry about it. It's gonna work. Because I have, and then I'm using these like electric blues and ox blood red with that really like Chinese red, what I call it. It's sort of like, this very like bright kind of cherry red mixed in. So these clients have really pushed me to think beyond what my normal was. Like I was always in the teal family. I've always loved, you know, that kind of like magenta aubergine color and the saffron yellow. That's sort of like my go-to. And in this case, I sort of had to branch out and go with some of those cleaner, more saturated colors. And that sort of Swedish, like electric blue that's almost purpley. I love it. Mm-hmm. It's on that whole strip with White Heaven is at the top, and then that whole strip is just gorgeous. So but they're still in the classic colors, right? It's not so sort of out there, but it's a different direction for me. And I really played in this case on each floor. You know, there are some floors that are, as I said, all white, sort of like a simply white, kind of creamy. And then there are a lot of pops of color within those spaces. And then the next floor is really saturated, and then also saturated color within. So it's going to be an interesting project. I'm really excited to see how it wraps up.
Sounds amazing. Yeah, no, it just sounds, I mean, I kind of have a picture in my mind of how, you know, you're kind of keeping everybody guessing, you know, as you move throughout the house, you know, what color is going to come next. Yeah, no, that sounds really, really amazing.
The bedroom floor is really great. That's where I got my gentleman's gray in there. Silver ceiling. I mean, it's really like, so it's fun.
Yeah.
It's a fun one.
And how lucky to have a client that is looking to, you know, go out there, you know. I mean, I know, you know, for me, when I'm going through the Fandex and, you know, the different color tools, it's amazing. You know, I've been using them for so long, and I still find colors that I never really noticed before, you know. I mean, it's kind of like, how did I not know this great color? And, you know, that's one of the things, you know, we have over 3,500 colors, and for some people it's not enough, and for some people it's overwhelming, but you know, it really kind of affords designers just this playground where they can just find exactly the right color for their project.
And I will say now, what I love about design is the interesting combinations. Like you're seeing more of that like vibrant electric blue mixed with a real beigey nude. Like that kind of thing, I feel like is pretty new. You know, there are a lot of like very classic, traditional color combinations. For sure, that deep red with black and goldy yellows, like that's classic. That's everywhere. Like, you know, throughout history. But that kind of like really like neutral nude mixed with like the electric kind of clean colors, I feel like that's pretty, it's a pretty new thing that people are doing. It's been a couple of years, but still it's really interesting way to play. Like, as I said before with my Healing Aloe living room, it's just an interesting way to play with the neutrals and reimagine what that means.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I think, you know, people are looking to get away from the gray and the neutrals. And, you know, while neutrals are still going to have their place, sure, I think people have a greater appetite for some of those more unusual combinations, you know, like you were talking about, you know, or I think of it as, you know, when you look at a man's suit, you know, and sometimes it'll have an amazing color on the lining, you know, with a very classic navy. And so it's keeping people guessing, and people are just looking to get back into color, I think.
Absolutely.
You know, and even like Healing Aloe, right? I mean, that's a great color. Love that one. but it is a color, and you can really you can do so much with it to really, play it up, play it down. It's a main event, or it becomes kind of the backdrop to the other colors that are in the space.
Yeah, it was sort of an accidental palette. I got my red coffee table in there and I was like, is this going to be crazy? And it's actually like gorgeous. And my sofa's chocolate brown. I mean, it's just like this I don't know if I would have laid it out. It's sort of like the design kind of happened naturally over time, but it just has proved to me that I need to start, re-envisioning neutrals and those background colors in a different way, because it really can be pretty dynamic to add something unexpected there.
When you have a commercial project, because I know you do some commercial work, how do you approach that differently from residential? Or are there some commonalities in how you're using color and how you're using the tools and the collections and so forth?
I think that the foundation, like my sort of foundational approach, is pretty much the same in terms of the space is really going to call for what it calls for to some extent. Part of that is, not about me. It's sort of like me letting go and just saying, like, what does this space want? And so there's that. What I will say about commercial is that you can just go high drama in a way that might not be as suitable or that many people wouldn't want for their everyday life. So I think you can play with color and you can turn up the notch on color. And you can also kind of go for weird combinations in a way in commercial spaces that maybe your client won't agree to. The other thing that's super important about color that I have learned sort of later in life, I think in the beginning I was trying to match everything. And when you match too perfectly, it just like your spaces look like a showroom and they don't have any soul. And so what I found recently, and I think it's really resonant for commercial projects, is that you need that off. You need the greens to be like, it's not quite there, but something about that space will just work and it will feel really good. So that's kind of something that I really try to keep in mind. And then like, what is the color that's going to be the star? Because you can use a lot of color and then you do one little accent pillow and that's all everybody sees, right? Like that's kind of the amazing thing. Or like one throw on the end of the bed and you're like, oh wow, that whole room became an orange thing or one piece of art. So it's really fun to be able to play all of these things.
I agree. And that's a great point about, if it's not a perfect match, that's actually almost better. I know that's one of the things that we always advise people to do, and people get so hung up on everything being perfectly matchy, but it's kind of, take a breather.
Yeah,
it doesn't have to be perfect, and chances are it's going to work even better, Yeah,
there's something about that little bit of imperfection and just sort of natural approach that feels better in the space. And when I work on my spaces, of course, I want the beautiful photograph. I want the color to look great. But the most important thing is that it feels amazing. And that little bit of having it a little off is what is going to actually feel better as a human being in a space.
It is. It's true. Yeah. And I think it all just comes back to the point that paint can transform the entire space. And, while there are lots of other elements that go into it, paint is such an important piece of it. And, being, coming from a paint company and it being, what I do day in, day out and something that I'm really passionate about, it's really exciting to be able to be part of that transformation and, have people come in to a finished space and just, have this, oh my God, I can't believe, this all came together. That's one of the things, for me, that's really rewarding. I'm sure, the reactions from clients are,
well, it is because mostly they've seen this much of the color. Even if you put everything together, they can't, tell scale. So it's such a great thing to see them come in and understand what you were going for, to understand why this
Yeah.
area has to be light and why this area has to be more enveloping. It's rewarding.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Danielle. This has been a great chat. I mean, we could probably go on all afternoon
Forever.
talking about different projects and colors and Hail
Yeah.
Navy and Gentleman's Gray. And, you know, I'm right there with you. I think, you know, we're definitely eye to eye on our favorites and our go-to colors. But thank you so much for joining me today. And this has been great.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
I am so excited to have a conversation with you. But since it's my new house, do you mind if we do a little tour first?
Oh my gosh, well, it's so gorgeous. I'm so excited to see. Yes, let's do it. And it's going to be photographed in Luxe.
I know, I'm so thrilled. And so Pam, this is the living room. And I intentionally chose all the colors of the walls here because I wanted to accentuate the colors that are in the paintings.
It's so warm. I love this soft color in here.
Isn't it pretty? It's really the color of the background of some of the paintings.
I see that.
And then I've got this great room which was right next door to it. So this room was actually originally outside and it was enclosed, but it's wonderful because it's right off of the living room and yet it opens up to the outside. So oftentimes after work I'll come here and on my computer and just it lets me be in the living room but also take advantage of the outside in the backyard.
Oh, the garden looks beautiful. We're here in your LA home. It's so warm. It's so elegant. You do comfortable elegance so well, Timothy. And also there is so much muted, warm, beautiful color. Talk a little bit about how you use color when you want to get sort of a comfortable elegance in a home. What's the art to that?
Well, you know, it's interesting, Pam, because I've lived in Europe over half of my adult life. And one of the things I've noticed is that Europeans are actually much more comfortable with color. It's a part of their lives. I think that Americans, for the most part, are a little afraid of color. We're almost afraid of getting it wrong, if you will. And I think that what Europeans understand is that color actually gives life to a house. You look at a room that's all beige and cream or gray. I think they look beautiful in magazines. I'll look at them and I'll say, oh, isn't that a pretty room? But if you spend any time in one of those rooms, it actually starts over time to feel a little soulless. And it's because of that lack of color. Even if it's just a splash of color, it makes a difference. Nature gets it right. There's every shade of color in nature, and that they all work together. I don't even believe that one color can't be paired with another. I think sometimes bringing together two diametrically sort of opposed colors can be wonderful in a space. Yeah. So I think that it's really what colors you like and bringing those into the room. And I think that color is such an important part of a room. And frankly, paint is one of the easiest ways to do it. It's so easy just to add some splash of color through paint.
And we're here in your living room. It's so beautiful. Talk a little bit about the wall color. What color is it?
Great. So, you know, it's interesting. My old house, I sold very quickly and I moved into a rental and didn't have time to find a great house. And I moved into a house that had the most sickly, grayish white walls. And I thought, well, it'll be interesting to live in a house with white walls. What I found was that the art just died. It literally, the color of the walls killed the art. And it was really when I, for the first time, realized how important color was to affecting the way you read art. So those walls would have been fine if I collected black and white photography. It would have been okay. But the grayness, the whiteness of them, actually, it killed the color of the art. So when I moved here, it was really one of the reasons I decided to move was to get a house that I could create a backdrop for my art collection. And I actually used the background colors in a number of these paintings in this room to determine the color. So this is Pittsfield Buff, which is a color from Benjamin Moore that I really love because it's a warm color and it's almost the color of a warm canvas. And so it really provides a great backdrop for the art in this room, which is predominantly 17th, 18th, and 19th century. And so Pam, this is the dining room. And what I was really trying to channel here was Monet's kitchen at his house in Giverny with the yellow and blue. It brings it all together.
Oh, it's beautiful. It's so classic and elegant in here, Timothy.
And I tried to mix the blue on the curtains, that, again, then picked up in the Delft here.
And these portraits are beautiful in here.
I just love portraits. They tell so much of a history.
I agree.
Yeah. And this is the den or the family room. And I intentionally painted this a darker color because I think that every house should have a room that's a little cozier. It's more of a nighttime room. When I moved here, the walls were gray up through the paneling and then white above. It made the room feel very short. But by taking the same color and bringing it all the way up, it actually makes the room feel taller.
I love it. It feels like a cocoa bean. Is it ginger snap?
You are good. But absolutely, Benjamin Moore ginger snap.
Lovely.
Great.
You know, we're in Los Angeles. You have your home here, you have your chateau in France, and your apartment in Paris. Right. I'm so interested in terms of how the environment in those three areas determine the colors and your palette, and talk a little bit about that.
Well, what's so interesting is that it comes back to light. It comes back to, so the light is so different in Southern California than it is in New York, or it is in Paris, or it is in the Loire Valley. So light is a key thing, but it's also what's outside the window that's reflecting that light. So if you're in the desert, for example, and you don't have you've got a lot of sand and everything like that, that's going to reflect, it's going to change on the light inside the room. If there's a lot of green grass, if you're on a lake, you have to look at all those things. Interestingly, at my chateau, which I was painting in the last year, I have always loved the yellow, the famous yellow of Nancy Lancaster in London. So I actually went to Colfax and Fowler where they had that yellow room, and I used a Benjamin Moore color reader to exactly match the yellow, and I painted it in the Grand Salon and Chateau, and it looked horrible. And I thought, Tim, you're smart enough. You should have known that the color that is great for London, where it's dark and gray so much of the time, and there's a lot of buildings around it, is not going to look the same in a chateau that has all these windows, that's in the Loire Valley where it's very sunny. So again, you have to always think about where you are and how the color is going to read in that place.
So it's interesting. We're in this space, which I'm looking at the wall color, and I love it so much. It feels so perfect. It's a neutral. I feel like neutrals can be tricky. There's I don't know how many whites there are, right, but there's a lot of whites, and whites are tricky. So are bold colors. How can you advise homeowners to feel comfortable making color selection choices?
I think you really need to look at what do you want to feel in that room. People are always, they underestimate the power of color to shape emotions and your feelings. So if you say, I want that room to be one where there's great conversation and energy, then bring some red into that room. If you want it to be a room that's soothing and calm, then probably green is the right color. So look at what you want the room to evoke and what you want to feel in that room, and then use colors accordingly.
And then how do you narrow it down? So you'll start with that. I want something soothing. If you have a client or if someone's doing it on their own, how can they narrow that down?
Well, again, I think it comes back to looking at what you want to feel. So blue is the world's favorite color. 35% of all people in the world say blue is their favorite color. And then they've gone into research have looked at it and said, well, why is it that blue is people's favorite color? It's because you associate it with things. You associate it with blue skies, sunny days, the water. So it connotes happiness. So again, come back to looking at how you want to feel in that room. Then once you get into that, once I know it's gonna be blue, then you can start to play with, I like this blue, or I like that blue, or I like this yellow or that yellow.
I want it more gray, I want it warm, I want it cool.
But come back to, and again, it's so easy. If you can just Google, say, meaning of the color red, and it'll tell you energy, excitement, hunger. Red's a great room for a dining room because it actually creates energy and power and people talking, but also eating.
Yeah. So it is so fascinating, just the color theory.
Absolutely. That's why there are grocery stores that often have the handles on the cart, are red, because you actually will buy more. Research has shown you actually buy more in a grocery store because it actually makes you hungry. This is my room, and I really wanted to create, again, that cozy feeling where all the colors sort of come together. But then there's some other little accent colors to add in.
Yeah, well, I love the wood grains in here, and also the touches of pink are beautiful.
Yeah, that's actually from my fabric for Schumacher. And again, it's got just the touches of pink and camel.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
This is so gorgeous, Timothy.
So this room I actually wanted to feel much lighter and more feminine than the rest of the house, to really go with the lighter furniture and the fabrics.
I love the wall color in
Isn't
here.
it pretty? This is Raspberry Ice by Benjamin Moore, and it's not pink, it's not purple, it's just this wonderful color that you can't really tell what it is, but it works so well with all the fabrics.
It feels like a little garden room in here. I just love it so much.
Oh, that's exactly what I wanted, yes! So this is actually the guest apartment, which is where I hope you will come and stay next time.
Yes, absolutely.
So, it's a full apartment with kitchen and dining room. This is the living room. And again, I did this room in a more traditional white because I wanted it to feel a little more contemporary and to really work with the bold fabric on the curtain.
Beautiful, and the whole mix, the antiques and the little modern art touches, so gorgeous.
Oh, thank you.
Advice for the color shy, which so many people are, and I think that we both agree that a white, just a barren white entire home,
Wow.
it needs a little bit of life
Yes,
to it.
absolutely.
So how can people be less color shy?
All right, so my rule of thumb is that there are basically 4 potential rooms in a house where you can actually go for some wow without worrying. Because they're the rooms that you're not spending a lot of time in, but they make impact. So an entrance hall. If you think about it, you're passing through that hall, but it actually makes a statement the second you walk in that door. The next is a powder room. You're not spending that much time in the powder room, but make it special, make it feel really unique. So you can do it with a great color, with a different wallpaper, but go for impact. But no one's spending that much time in that room that they'll become overwhelmed in it. The next, I think, is a dining room. Again, you're not spending that much time in the dining room, you're a couple hours at a time, and you want to create a special feeling in that room, whether it's just your family eating in it or for a special occasion. So a dining room is another place where you can safely add some color and add some drama. And the last place I would say is a guest room, because you actually want it to feel special. You want it to feel like they're not at home, your guests are not at home, that they're someplace sort of special. It might be too overwhelming for you on a daily basis. That's fine, because you actually don't want your guests to stay forever. So you can go for some wow, and after a couple of days, they'll be ready to move on.
And a home needs these special moments
They
for
do.
yourself and for guests,
Absolutely.
honestly.
Absolutely. I think special moments throughout a home make it more special.
As do I. I am always a bit confused about which interior paint to use. It's like semi-gloss, high gloss. I mean, I've seen all of them. I love all the different finishes. How do you use them both on the interior and exterior in different homes? And when do you go for like a high gloss?
There are certain finishes that are just more practical. So on a doorway where you're pushing it, you're touching it, on the casing around it, much better to do it in a semi-gloss or a gloss, because it's easier to clean. A matte paint is actually inherently much more stainable. Your fingerprints show on it more. It's not as easy to clean off. So again, I look at those sorts of things. One of the things that Benjamin Moore has that I love is they've got a finish called Scuff-X, which is 4 walls, but it's easy to clean off. And so at my Chateau, I've done Scuff-X on all the walls because I don't want to have to worry about handprints and fingerprints everywhere. I tend to use eggshell on ceilings. The reason I do that is that the light bounces off eggshell in a very subtle way. You can't even really tell that it's that much different than a matte, but it just gives a subtle sheen. So especially it's great for low ceilings. It actually makes that ceiling look taller because of the reflective nature to it.
So we've been talking about interior colors and they set a mood, but honestly, for curb appeal and when someone comes into a home, how do you think about exterior colors? And here in LA, you've just moved into this home. What did you think about? You've got the front exterior, the garden. So talk a little bit about how you use paint there.
Well, it's interesting because I think that when it comes to the exterior and the selection of a paint color, I really do believe you've got to look at what the architectural style of that structure is. And there are certain colors that are appropriate, more appropriate than others for houses. So if you've got a Mediterranean house, it probably should be a white or a pink or a cream, whatever, because that's what the architectural style mandates. A Georgian colonial like this, there's a set number of colors that are appropriate for that. This house actually used to be pale yellow with white trim, and now it's white with black trim. So I think that to me, it's about being appropriate for that house. I think that's important as the exterior, because you don't get to fill it with furniture and styles. So people are really rating it and grading it based on the appropriateness of that house in that context of the color. But you also have to think about the neighboring houses and what are those colors, because you don't want to be the purple house on a street of white houses. You really do need to make sure that your house, even it can make a statement, but you don't want it to be a statement that is too bold or too dramatic. You want to feel like you are a part of the setting that the house is in.
Yes, and there's a community sense about
Absolutely.
it. And it doesn't stick out like a sore thumb.
Exactly. And here we are in the backyard, and it's not a big backyard, but we find that we use every bit of it.
Oh, beautiful. It's like a slice of paradise in Hancock Park here.
Thank you.
I like the trellis along the wall, too.
It's a fun little touch, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's been so nice to be with you, Timothy. Thank you.
I love being with you. Thank you for coming.
Yeah, cheers.
Cheers.
Hey, Dan. Well, listen, we had an amazing day today, didn't we?
Well, thank you. It's been great being here. And Benjamin Moore is going to continue on its 138-year history of innovating products, building relationships with different clienteles, growing our brand around the world. So we're very, very excited about that. And thank you for having us today.
Thank you, Benjamin Moore. The industry loves you, and I want to thank you.